The Hornets were red hot to end off the season, but still fell short in the postseason. Let's end the rebuild on this edition of The Nest. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Nest RXP. My name is Robin, welcoming you back as we continue our rebuild of each NBA team in their offseason, and we're tackling the Charlotte Hornets today. A team, one of the few teams in the NBA that I do not particularly care for, but one that I actually think has one of the better futures in the NBA as long as they continue to maintain the course and don't rush this process. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we get into it, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure to go check out the TikTok, the Instagram. I post daily content about the postseason and playoffs there, even though we only have a couple more games left, and by the time this comes out, the postseason will probably be over. But still, I'll post daily content around the NBA and things like that over on that channel or on those pages and things like that. So just make sure you go check them out and make sure to check out this page for more content about each NBA team, because like I said, we're covering every single one of them. Now, the thing with the Hornets is they have a very good future ahead of them, but they're also still extremely young. And I think a big question that they're going to have to kind of tackle is if they want to continue to build with LaMelo Ball as their number one option. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of LaMelo Ball. I don't think he can be that quality number one option. I don't think he can lead you to a championship or anything like that. He's an incredibly good player. He's a very good statistical player. Very fun to watch, don't get me wrong. But I think that you need a little more of a defined number one option, one with more consistency and one with a little more versatility in order to compete, especially with this team, because this team has a ton of really good second and third options. It's just a matter of getting that primary first option. But for now, the Hornets looks like they're going to be sticking with LaMelo Ball, so for this instance, I just left LaMelo Ball with the team, but I do think that in a year or two, they're going to need to really answer that question and probably trade LaMelo Ball, if not this offseason or next offseason, sometime in the near future. So like I said with the Hornets, they have a ton of talent across the board already. It's just a matter of upgrading and refining like one or two primary positions and maybe getting a little more experience and depth and things like that. But with this process, I didn't speed run the rebuild because I do think they still have some ways to go. But I did give them a couple upgrades that are young enough that can be beneficial for the long-term process as well. And so the first thing I did was I upgraded that center position. Now, don't get me wrong, Moussa Diabate, Ryan Kalkbrenner, whoever's starting at center, they did very well, especially for how young they are this season. But for those two guys, especially Diabate, who I actually really like, he's not a starting caliber center in my opinion, at least not yet. He's better suited as a bench forward, bench 4, bench 5, who provides that energy and provides that rebounding and things like that, and that pure energy, because he obviously won the Hustle Award. He's better suited off the bench in that regard, which is why I think you really need an upgrade and a defined starting center. And there's a couple guys that you can go with, but I made a couple trades that I think would be for a center that I think would be good for the team. So the first center I was looking at was Rudy Gobert, who I do think could be a good option for them, but I also worry about his age. He's not going to be around for too much longer, and you're going to waste pretty good assets in order to get him. And I think the only way you could get him is in this, well, not the only way, but I think the relatively best way you could get Rudy Gobert is in this 3-team trade that I don't particularly care for, and it basically involves the Hornets acquiring Rudy Gobert, the Cavs acquiring Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate, and the Timberwolves acquiring Josh Green and Jarrett Allen. Now, like I said, you could do this. If you wanted Rudy Gobert, he'd be perfect for this team because this team is pretty good spacing already, so now you get Rudy Gobert on top of that. But I don't particularly care for this trade because you're giving up Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate, and I think if you wanted to get a center, you shouldn't give up both of them. You should only give up one, especially because I like Diabate on this team. I think he fits this team beautifully. So I ended up not going with that trade. The team I actually went and traded with is the Brooklyn Nets, and I went and got Nicholas Claxton because I think he's the cheapest, best center option that you can get, other than maybe Isaiah Hartenstein, it seems like he's going to be staying with the Thunder, so I just disregarded that. But I think that this trade is best suited for the Hornets because you can get off some bad contracts and get Nicholas Claxton back. So what does the trade look like? It looks like this. So the Nets will acquire Josh Green and Grant Williams and the 18th pick this season, or this offseason, from the Hornets, and the Hornets will acquire Nicholas Claxton. Pretty simple trade. The Nets, they get a first-round pick out of it, and they just get 2 contracts, and one of them is expiring, and they just get something for Nicholas Claxton, helps their rebuild process. And if you're the Hornets, you get Nicholas Claxton. You get a starting caliber center who's a pretty solid defender. He's a pretty good passer. On top of that, he's a good rebounder. He's just a quality guy that can fit all that. And obviously, other teams might be trying to outbid this offer, but for like, you could make the offer a little bit sweeter and take, instead of doing the 18th pick, do the 14th pick. But I don't know if I would give up the 14th pick for Nicholas Claxton. That's why I'm kind of like sticking with that 18th pick and then like 2 contracts that you just want to get off of. So I don't know, but obviously Nicholas Claxton's value might increase a little bit because of this weak center market that's going around right now. The next thing I did was I tried to get a starting caliber power forward, or not a starting caliber, but a upgraded power forward who also improves the youth of this team, but also fits significantly better. And I think the perfect guy that fits this is Tari Eason. Tari Eason, because of his contract, he's going to command a decent bit of money, and the Rockets are going to need to pay him in the near future. And I think that he's a guy that the Hornets could easily target and sign and trade with. They may have to give up a decent bit in order to get him, but they can easily go and get him and sign him, and he's that perfect 4 that fits alongside Ball and Con Knipple and Brandon Miller and Nicholas Claxton now. But he's that perfect 4 that's a defensive presence. He's a solid rebounder. He can be a good shooter. He didn't shoot well at the end of the season, but he shot like a pretty good percentage for the start of the season, so he can be that perfect 4 and kind of be an upgraded Miles Bridges in this instance. So what does the trade look like? It just looks something like this. The Hornets will acquire Clint Capella and Tari Eason for contract purposes, and the Rockets will acquire Miles Bridges and a 2027 first-round pick from the Hornets via Miami, so it's top 15 protected. Again, you can maybe give up just your own pick in the 2027 draft. I don't. That might be too big of a risk unless you want to do like a top 5 protected pick of your own. For Tari Eason, whatever the case may be, just a pick, basically, plus Miles Bridges for Tari Eason and Clint Capella. And boom. Now you got Tari Eason, you got that starting caliber power forward. And you can easily reroute Clint Capella if you need to, because I think there's going to be a ton of teams that are looking for a backup center. I think that, like, you could easily reroute him to the Pelicans for, like, just a cheap contract or another young player or something like that. Or you could reroute Clint Capella again for another sign and trade, because there's a couple guys that I do want them to sign as well that you may need to sign and trade for, but probably not. But regardless, I like to trade. I like Tari Eason perfectly with this team. And there's another option. You could go and get Cam Johnson off the Nuggets, because he's going to be extremely cheap. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for that. If you can get him for cheap, go and do it. I just don't know. Honestly, I've just seen a lot of people doing it, so I didn't want to just copy everyone else and say it. But Cam Johnson is also a definite another fit that you can fit with that 4 spot. But I like Tari Eason because he's also he's not extremely young, but he's young enough that he fits now and he fits the future. And now for free agency. So obviously I have the Hornets re-signing Kobe White to a nice little 4-year, $100 million deal, $25 million per year. That's pretty good for a guy like Kobe White. I don't think he's going to command too much. I don't think he's going to command like 30 plus or anything like that. But 100 to 110 million or something like that would be good for Kobe White. It's a nice solid ground where you pay him, he gets what he relatively deserves, and you're not risking overpaying him and risking his contract being terrible for the future. And it's also $25 million. That's a pretty good tradable contract for the future, kind of similar to the Miles Bridges contract. I then have them signing Quentin Grimes to a nice 3-year, $28 to $30 million deal. This is the one you may need to sign and trade, like Quentin Grimes for Clint Capella or something like that, if you felt the need to, or if the Sixers fought you on that. Something like that, and you may not even need to get Clint Capella. You could just reroute him for something stupid. But just getting Quentin Grimes, I think, is huge for that backup 2 or 3 spot for this team, because it also provides a little depth and it provides a little veteran personality as well with this team. And finally, I just have them signing some type of veteran, like aging veteran, to this team. I have Kevin Love, Jeff Green, Mason Plumlee, all guys that could work for this, but DeAndre Jordan, if Mike Conley wants to go to Charlotte, which probably not, he's probably going to just stick with Minnesota. Kyle Lowry, any of these guys, any of those veterans that can just be the voice of wise wisdom on this team would be huge. And I just have these 3 guys because I think those are the best options and the most likely options for this team. And now for the draft. Obviously, you traded the 18th pick for Nicholas Claxton, so you just have the 14th pick. And I just have them picking up Kareem Lopez. I think he's the perfect 3 or 4 guy to kind of fit on the bench with this team. He can be, if Tari Eason doesn't pan out as a player, he can, or as that 4 spot of the future, Kareem Lopez can step up and be that guy for them for the future. So I like this pick. He may not fall to 14. I think people have him going anywhere from 9 to 11 or 9 to 12. But if he's there at 14, definitely go and get him. But there's a couple other guys maybe like Morris Johnson, but any of those 3 or 4 guys that could fit that role pretty well. Yaxel, I can't pronounce his name. Yaxel is another good option. And that's about it for the Hornets. Like I said, this team has a lot of talent, so it's just a matter of like fine tuning things. So a lot of the core is remaining the same. Obviously, if you want to move off of LaMelo Ball, this would look a lot different. But I didn't move off of LaMelo Ball for this instance. But this is what the team would look like now with these minute changes. So LaMelo Ball and Concanipo will run the backcourt positions. Brandon Miller will run the 3 spot. Tari Eason now would be the starting 4 with Nicholas Claxton at the 5. And then Kobe White, Zion James off the bench with Quentin Grimes, Kareem Lopez, and Diabate. And you also have Kalkbrenner, Trey Mann, Liam McNeely, and then your veteran Kevin Love, Mason Plumlee, Jeff Green, whoever it may be. So that's the team. I like this team. They're still extremely young. They still have a year or 2 before they're really competing, but I think this team could easily make the play-in or maybe the 6th seed again next year. And I think that's all you need to be pushed towards, because you want to give Con, you want to give Miller, you want to give Claxton, you want to give these guys playoff experience so that when they actually, it is time for them to compete in like 2-3 years from now, they had that experience and not going into it completely blind and completely like unexperienced in that regard. But let me know what you think. Should the Hornets stick with LaMelo Ball, or should they trade him this offseason and just start a complete rebuild with a new start? Let me know in the comments down below. And until then, y'all, peace.